Okay, we're learning the talk of the Rebbe from the year 1965 on Achron Pesach. So let me bring it up here. Okay. So the Rebbe says like this. Kol Kedishas Admar Shlita Natal Yadav Akdoisha Lesuda. The Rebbe washed his hands for the meal of the Moshiach Suda. And after they sang the song of Ata B'Chatanu, which is the song the Rebbe taught with regard to Yom Tiv, the Rebbe asked, "Lenagin hanigan miMitzrayim Ge'altanu." They should sing the song miMitzrayim Ge'altanu and the song Animamim. Again, this is Mashiach, so they sang the song Animamim. And the Rebbe started to talk like this afterwards. At the meal of Achron Shal Pesach 20 years before, so 1945. Amar Kveikedus Marichami Admer, the previous Rebbe is still alive in America. The previous Rebbe said like this: L'chaim, he wished everyone L'chaim. Upirish, and he explained what does it mean to wish someone L'chaim. Yitan Hashem Yisbarach, God should give. Shekol Hagiluyim Shal Yom Tov Zeh, all the revelations that are connected to this holiday, meaning Pesach. V'hagilui Shal Yom Tov Zeh Achron Shal Pesach, and specifically the revelations of the final day of Pesach, Agili Shal Mashiach, which is the revelations of Mashiach, Yumshechu b'hiskalas b'chesed d'rachmim, should come down in a revelation, in a revealed way, in a way of chesed and rachmim. That's with kindness and compassion, because it could be otherwise. Not everything has to come down b'chesed b'rachmim, God forbid. So the revelations of Mashiach should come down in a way that should be easy, good, that shouldn't come through difficulties. This is again 1945, at the end of the war. The Rebbe took a glass of wine and he said, "L'chaim," he wished everyone l'chaim. Yitan Hashem Yisbarach, God should give each one of us b'chulu b'chesed rachmim, all the things, etc., with kindness and compassion. Meaning that again, there's ways things comes down, blessings or revelations come down. It's not a guarantee that it comes down with kindness and compassion. And the Rebbe continued, and he explained it like this: Yom Tov Stam Kai Akol Yom Tov. When you say that the idea of holiday is referring to all the holidays. There's various holidays throughout the year. As we say, we have similar of the tefillos, of the prayers that we say in all the holidays. Therefore, he explained that when the Rebbe said, the Rebbe is explaining that when the previous Rebbe said that the revelations of this holiday, that the idea is that he's wishing l'chaim, that the revelations of specifically Pesach, not the holiday component that has a similarity to the other holidays, but the uniqueness of the holiday of Pesach, those revelations should come down b'chesed u'berachmim, with kindness and compassion. And within Pesach itself, there's two levels. Inyan hayam tov, the holiday, asher noisef al hayoyse echel mishalish regalim, u'roish hashana l'regalim, like we learned the previous weeks, that aside from being just one of the holidays, it is the head of all the holidays. That's why it's Rosh Hashanah l'regalim. It's the New Year's for holidays. Leirak tchilas haregalim, tchilas bizma. It's not just the beginning. That when you start counting, you count Pesach first. Eliroish is the head of the holidays, l'regalim. Tikashem, as we explained in the previous talks, Tikashem sha'roish shebadim koil zachayis, shakol ha'ivarim umanhigoisam. Just like the head has all the vitality, all the life of the body, and guides the body, and the life force of the body goes through the brain. So too, if we call the holiday of Pesach the Rosh Kol HaRegalim, that's what it's called, Rosh Hashanah, means it's like the head. It is the head of holidays. Again, all the holidays are built around the concept of Yetzias Mitzrayim, of leaving Egypt. Umani Goisem, and it guides them. So that's one thing. This idea of Yom Tiv, the way Pesach is the head of all the other holidays. Beis, Chag Pesach, the way Pesach is, v'kavanas koik dus admer b'dibur oidis hagiluim sheyom tov zeh, and therefore, when the previous Rebbe says he's wishing l'chaim that the revelations of this holiday, he hein lagiluim sheyom tov b'chlal, he means the way Pesach is the head of all the holidays. Shekal yom tovim koilim b'chag Pesach, all the holidays are included in Pesach. That's why it's called Rosh Hashanah l'regalim. V'hein, and also l'hagiluim shechag Pesach b'yichud. The specific parts, just like the brain, though it gives all the vitality throughout the body, it has its own functionality as well. There's the component of Pesach that's unique only to Pesach. It has nothing to do with that. It's the head of all the other holidays. The Rebbe says that my father continued. And he says not just the revelations of this holiday, the revelations of this day, meaning Achron Shel Pesach. Achron Shel Pesach, which is the Gili of Moshiach. The specific revelations of Moshiach are connected specifically to the day of the final day of Pesach, which is known as Achron Shel Pesach. Kivan she'omer v'hagilui b'vav hamoisiv. And the Rebbe is basically was Edif bringing of his father-in-law in 1945, when he wished l'chaim, and he explained that l'chaim means to bring the revelations of this holiday and this day. So the Rebbe is analyzing every part of that statement. And the Rebbe says, Kivan she'omer, since the previous Rebbe said v'hagili with a vav, means and the revelation. Moving, it means to say she'ein kavanasi linyani shel achron pesach shehu echad me'ah pesach. The very fact that he didn't say the revelation of Achron Shel Pesach the way it is part of the other 7 days. When he added the vav, means also to, in addition to being part of Pesach, something unique specifically about the final day of Pesach, which is with regard to Mashiach. Just like in every holiday, just like in all the holidays, we celebrate an extra day in Chutz La'aretz outside of Eretz Yisrael. Like by us, I'm in Eretz Yisrael now, so in Yerushalayim, we're going to keep only Shabbos, which is Shri Shal Pesach, and Sundays are going to be already Isru Chag. But in Chutz La'aretz, they keep 8 days. So Chagigim Chutz La'aretz Yom Tov Shein Shagalas. Chach Gam Shri Shal Pesach Yesh Yom Tov Shein. So too Shri Shal Pesach, which is itself a holiday, meaning to say we have, and it's similar to what we have with Simchas Torah and Shmini Atzeres. You have the Shri Shal Pesach as part of Pesach. Because we have a suffix, we have a doubt of when the new month is. So we always keep 2 days. So we're keeping 2 days. So really, the 8th day is just a protection for the 7th day, in case the 7th day is really the 6th day. So we keep the 8th day to be a backup for the 7th day, which means to say, Kach b'Shvisha Pesach, the 7th day of Pesach, Yesh Yom Tov Sheni has a 2nd day, just in case it's not the real 7th day. So if that would be the case, that the Rebbe is giving a bracha for the extension or for the protection of the 7th day of Pesach, so that's part of the holiday that's part of the holiday of Pesach. They said Yom Tov Zeh. The fact that he said Yom Zeh, he doesn't mean to say the day that's an extension of the 7th day, but the uniqueness of the 8th day on its own. Therefore, we must say, what my father-in-law's intention was, the Rebbe says, the Inyan Miyuchad, Sheyeshne B'Achron Shel Pesach, the uniqueness that Achron Shel Pesach has, She'eini B'Shar Yemei Pesach Shofnei Zeh, that's not connected to the 7th day, or not connected to any days of Pesach. There's a part of the Achron Shel Pesach that, although it's called Yom Tov Sheni Shel Galias, the 2nd day outside of in the diaspora, which we don't keep in Eretz Yisrael. So but it's not just an extension of the 7th day, it turned into its own day, so to say, Achron Shel Pesach, which is to celebrate the day of Moshiach. And my father continued to explain. They didn't just say Yom Zeh, as in to say Achron Shel Pesach, but he was specific. Hagili Shel Mashiach, the revelations of Mashiach. She'ein Zeh Inyan B'fnei Atzmai. She'chein Ein Omer V'Hagili. Means he could have said the revelations of the 8th day and the revelations of Mashiach. But here he doesn't say and the revelations of Mashiach, meaning to say that what is the uniqueness of the 8th day is all about Mashiach. What does it mean? The revelations of this day. What is unique about the 8th day of Pesach? Achron Shel Pesach, or the final day of Pesach. as will be explained, the revelations of Moshiach. Apia now, based on this, the Rebbe says, is yesh levar atam, we can explain, sheyom hatam sheyom zeh nikra b'shem achim Pesach. Why do we call the final day of Pesach the final day of Pesach, not the 8th day of Pesach? Ube hagdama. Sheshma milsahi. We know in Torah that names that we analyze names. The literal translation means Sheshma milsahi, that a name means something. Shem shal davar mesuyim, when you have a specific name. Shem shniskablatz b'nei Yisrael, and especially if it's a name that was accepted by Jewish people. Ubefrat kasher shem zeh huve b'sfarim shem chelik mitarish b'apeh, and even more so, if this name is brought down in Sfarim, in books of Torah. Ein Hashem Haskami, it's not just a name that people decided to give. In order to understand what is the point of the day, we analyze the name. Or the point of something is we analyze the name. So when everyone agrees to call a name at a certain name, it's for a reason, and the reason is to give us insight into the meaning of that name or that thing that's given a name. And that doesn't make a difference if the name that's been given is directly connected or not directly connected. It's definitely connected to give us insight. The point is that it means even if the name is just like a side name that seemingly has no connection, that one has to analyze a name, especially a name that's accepted by Jewish people and brought down in Sfarim, in books of Torah, means to say that the name is a way for us to understand what we're experiencing now. If that's the case, it's not understood. Why do we call this day the 8th day of Pesach, the last day, the final day of Pesach? If one wants to analyze, there's the final day of every holiday, even Shavuos, which is only 2 days. But this is also an extra day, meaning the 8th day is the day only in the diaspora, as so to say, a protection of the 7th day. So we could call the final day of Shavuos also the final day of Shavuos. We call it the 2nd day of Shavuos. Or also Shmini Atzeres or Simchas Torah, we could call the final day of Sukkot. We don't find that there's such a concept. We don't find the word final only in the final in the last day of Pesach. The last of the holidays of Sukkot is called Simchas Torah. And again, the reason we call that day Simchas Torah is because it shows us the uniqueness of the day separate from the other days of Sukkot. That it's the day we celebrate the completion of the Torah, of reading the Torah. And on the holiday of Shavuos, Nikra Yom Achim b'Shem Shavuos. Stam, it's just called the holiday of Shavuos. We don't give it a specific name. Is we say Yom Tov Sheni Shavuos. If we want to say what day of Shavuos we're talking about, we'll say the 2nd day of Shavuos. We won't say the final day of Shavuos. Now, though a person may ask and say, well, we didn't attribute final to a 2-day holiday, but an 8-day holiday makes more sense. But that's not that's a technical answer. It's not an insightful answer. V'imkein, gam b'chag haPesach hayom ha'achin tzarich likar b'shem Pesach stam. Shmini shal Pesach. It should have been called the 8th day of Pesach or just Pesach. Just to tell us, to know which day we're talking about within Pesach, Ariel, is we're talking about the 8th day of Pesach. But it doesn't mean to say that why do we have to call it the final day of Pesach? Where we could have given it a name connected to the splitting of the Red Sea, which is connected to the 7th day of Pesach. Because the the 8th day of Pesach is, like I said, a protection to the 7th day. And what was unique? What do we celebrate tomorrow tonight by Meets Ready Friday or tomorrow night in Chutz La'aretz? Is the splitting of the Red Sea. So it should have been called the 2nd day of the splitting of the Red Sea. Or whatever. The Rebbe said you could have called it the 2nd day of the splitting of the Red Sea. Why do we give it the name of the final day of Pesach? The Rebbe says we must say Therefore, we must say that when we celebrate what we call the final day of Pesach, is that there's something unique about the final day of Pesach, not connected to the fact that it's the follow-up day to the splitting of the Red Sea. And you separate from all the other days of Pesach. And how do we understand the uniqueness of this day is by the very fact that it is called the final day of Pesach. Okay. So that's the Rebbe's questions. Now we're going to get to the Rebbe's insight. What is the idea? Hashem Achrein, when we call something the final, Moira al sim kolinian. When you say something is the final day, is to indicate that it is the completion of the subject at hand. That it has included within it all the aspects of the days or the things that are happening before, and the very fact that it's the final, it gives a completion to it. Right? When we say the final is a completion of the subject at hand, it becomes complete because this is the final day. Lahavdil, if you want to talk about sports, right? When you have a World Series, right? So you say the final game of the series is because it finalizes. This is the game that's going to decide who's the winner. So it has the idea of final is to give an shleimus, to give a completion to the whole subject at hand. In our case, Shvisha Pesach. What is Achron Pesach, so to say, a final of, and what is it bringing an elevation to or completion to? To the idea of the seventh day of Pesach. Then what is Shvisha Pesach? Shvisha Pesach itself is connected to the other 6 days of Pesach. For the very fact that it's called the seventh means there has to be 6 days before. And if not for the 6 days before, it wouldn't be the seventh day of Pesach. So when it comes to Shvisha Pesach, it's only a continuation. That we have 6 days, now it's the seventh day. It doesn't necessarily have that Shvisha Pesach includes all the other days necessarily, because then the term would be Shiva as a group of 7, as opposed to the seventh. So in Hebrew, we call it Shvi Shal Pesach, not Shiva Shal Pesach. El B'Shem Shvi, Misver Siduri, an organized number. We have 6 days, now we have the seventh day. Mashenkin Achrim says it's the final day of Pesach. Hashem Achrin Moira, Shukoilas Kol Yimei Pesach Shalafanav Mashlam Esem. That's not, it's final because it includes within it all the days, and it completes and elevates the whole Pesach. We find this when it comes to, with regard to the tribes of the Jews, who traveled through the desert. Who is the tribe that traveled last? That was the tribe of Dan. Because the tribe of Dan was the final of all the tribes to travel. It was known as the gatherer of all the camps. So the literal translation is they had the opportunity to fulfill the mitzvah of Hashavas Aveda, of returning lost articles. Not necessarily the other tribes, because maybe they weren't sure who it belonged to. Done knowing that they were the final tribe, anything that was left in the desert, they knew they had to take. Otherwise, that's it. No, it's going to be left in the desert. So they were always gathering what people left behind. And they had the opportunity to fulfill the commandment of returning lost articles. So they were called the Ma'asef, the one who gathered all the lost things from the camp. So just like Dan is called the gatherer of all the camps, meaning to say that it completed this travel, that in case anything was left over, no longer is anything left over. Anything that could have been left over by any of the other tribes, Dan gathered. So too, Achron Pesach gathers in all the energy of the whole holiday. Excuse me. The very fact that the Achron Pesach, the final day of Pesach, has the power to do this, to complete and to fix all the other days of Pesach. Muchach means, the point is, it has to have something very unique about it. In order to elevate, complete, and fix things, you have to have a power to fix it. You have to be stronger. So there has to be a certain strength in the final day of Pesach that is able to elevate in case we didn't properly perform in the holiday of Pesach up until that point, the final day of Pesach has the ability to fix that. If it's able to fix that, it means it has a special strength. The Rebbe continues. Based on what we said before. So therefore, now we understand. When the previous Rebbe said L'chaim in 1945, on the final day of Pesach by the Moshiach Suda, and he says L'chaim for this holiday, for this day. And what does this day mean? The revelations of Moshiach. So when the previous Rebbe explains what is the uniqueness of Achron Pesach, the final day of Pesach, Shezeo Gili Shal Mashiach, the revelations of Mashiach. Ishtavar, we could explain Ashaychas Shal Mailas Achron Pesach Shemashtem is Koimei Pesach Minyan Shal Mashiach. So we'll understand this, that what is the power of the final day, again, by calling it Achron, final, that it has the power of completion and elevation of the other days of Pesach, is because it's connected to the revelations of Mashiach. But Yuvin Apia Yedua will understand this based on what's known about one of the things about Mashiach. Shemashiach Yifal Kibbutz Kolyas. One of the things that we know, of course, about the Mashiach is the Mashiach is going to gather in all the Jews in exile, all those who are lost in the diaspora. Mashiach Yikabes is called Bnei Yisrael. The Mashiach is going to gather all the Jewish people. We call them Koimes from all the places, Shemsayim Megalis, that were found throughout the diaspora and Galus. No matter where that place is, physically, spiritually, or what have you. But he's going to bring all the Jewish people to the land of Eretz Yisrael. Ubagdam, the Rebbe says, B'nei Yisrael, Kshura Gashmis Meruchnis. We know that Jewish people, our physical and material, are connected to our spiritual. The Torah tells us clearly, you want your tree to give the fruit physically, materially, in the way that you want. The Torah says, so you have to go in the mitzvahs of Hashem. Your finances, your success in the field, literally the field of life, depends on are you going to walk in my ways? And the Torah continues. This is what it says in the Torah. God tells Moshe to tell the Jewish people, if you walk in my ways, then the tree will give its fruit. So beruchnis, and that's also in the way of spiritual. Kedivrei Gemara, my paras. What does it mean, fruits? Mitzvahs. For us, if a person does the fruits, beruchnis, the mitzvahs, then you're going to have the fruits in the physical. So the same idea that the Jewish people's material, physical is connected to spiritual. There's also when it comes to the gathering of the exile. Mashiach is going to gather in those who are nitche, that pushed away Jewish people in a physical way. How is he going to gather in? What's going to be the pull to gather in physically the Jewish people from all places of the world? Because he's going to gather in their souls. And like we said before, a Jewish person's material is connected to its spiritual. So by gathering in the souls, it's going to also gather in the physical of all the Jewish people, wherever they're found. As the Rebbe Rashab said, who was the father of the previous Rebbe, Reb Shalom Dov Ber Schneerson, in his famous letter, with regard to the coming of Moshiach, David leben David, in that letter, the Rebbe Rashab writes the difference between when we refer to Mashiach as David, King David, or the son of David. Over there, the Rebbe explains, the Rebbe Rashab explains what's the idea of gathering in the exiles in a spiritual way. Why is it, the Rebbe Rashab says, that sparks of the Jewish people are found in exile? It started from the breaking of the vessels. So the idea, the breaking of the vessels was a disconnect between spiritual and physical. But that led to the ability of the tree of knowledge, Eitzadas Tovara, the tree of knowledge, good and bad, which through Bechira, through choices that we make, we also do sins, God forbid. And by doing the sins, we're connected to the tree of knowledge, to the breaking of the vessels, and therefore we're also pushed out. God gives a person strength, talents, qualities. And a person invests, mashkia means invest your strengths and qualities. Koicha ma'isa v'dibur, meaning including your action, speech, v'machshav, and thought. Shebe'ikram hem koiches nafshe elikis. Those are really expressions and powers of the godly soul. Koiches the kedusha, your holy, spiritual strength. And nevertheless, you mashkia, you invest them in worldly things. What's top of your list of issues, of concerns, of anxieties, of wants, of excitements, of achievements, is all about the physical, things of this world. So when you're taking, if the expression of the godly soul is the strengths that God gave you and how it's actualized in speech, in action, speech, and thought, and you invest those, you take the spiritual and you invest in the spiritual spark. You put that energy into exile. Why? Because you're investing it into worldly things, as opposed to, not to saying that the point is not to say that there shouldn't be worldly things. A person needs a house, food, clothing, success to live. But so the idea is, where's the investment? What's the purpose? What's the focus? Well, Pratisya, the Rebbe explains even more. What does it mean to invest your strengths in worldly things? When it comes to speech and action, instead of everything being as a gateway, as an opportunity to perform a mitzvah, even when you're working, you're earning. Why? So you should be able to perform a mitzvah in a better way, right? So and instead of speaking, scheming of all kind of things that you're going to do or want to do, etc., you invest your speech. Instead, you should invest your speech in Torah and Tefillah. Instead, you're investing in other things. Not just not just talking about, not just an opportunity to talk the words of Torah and Tefillah, but you could talk kind, give chizuk to someone, divrei ava, words of love and encouragement to a colleague. It means you could use your words for positive. You have a limited amount of words. You could use your words as a tool to help someone, to give someone courage, to give someone strength. That's itself a mitzvah of loving someone like yourself. You wouldn't mind having courage. You wouldn't mind having support, attention. Why would you not give it? Instead, you use your words for other things, right? You choose your words wisely. The Rebbe says that's even greater in certain ways, that to give words of encouragement, it's even stronger than giving sometimes a good action. We know when it comes to the laws of tzedakah, the opportunity to do tzedakah, the Torah the Talmud teaches the way you give tzedakah, right? You could just give a pruta. Nice, and pruta means I gave the money. What's the difference? No, the Gemara talks about the mefayis. Make the poor person feel good about himself or herself, right? You could give someone and make them feel bad about themselves, having to ask. So mefayis means you encourage the person, give them strength. Instead of doing that, of using your speech and action for good things, you're putting your speech and action into things that are worldly. It doesn't mean bad things. But imagine literally, you could have said something, lashon hara, had said a joke, or chose that time and those words, the opportunity to speak, to give someone chizuk, to give someone strength. Why would you choose the other way? Ubeikar, the Rebbe says, that's all galus. It means you're putting in your opportunities to engage in holiness and in encouraging and in love and Avos Yisrael. You're putting those energies into galus, into exile. Ubeikar, when it comes to your thought, and it's also the most sensitive and crucial part of the person, because in the thought process of the person is where there's a lot of vulnerability. Speech and action is more distant. So if you say something wrong or do something wrong, you're less likely or not as likely to be affected as when you think things that you shouldn't think. The Tani explains the three garments, which are speech, which are action, speech, and thought. Thought, speech, and action. The most refined and elevated, and therefore most vulnerable, is our thought. Therefore, it's most important. That's why we say the famous teaching where it says Yigia kapecha ki seichel v'lo yagia harosh. It says the Torah says you should toil with your hands, not with your head. What's the difference? It's not a difference in results. It's a difference in focus. That when you toil with your hands, it's more distance. It's chitzonius. It's external. When you toil with your mind, so then it gets deeper. So that's what the Rebbe is saying here. The thought is more zach, more refined and elevated, and therefore more vulnerable. A person can technically argue, okay, my speech, I have to earn a living, so I need to use my speech for things that would create that would help me earn a living. I have to spend my time, my action in earning a living. So you have the argument that even if you're focused, your action is not focused in the right way, even if it's for living, but it's not with the right energy behind it or mindset. But as far as it goes, it's an action that's required. What's really in your mind? We're not talking about your mind, the part that you need to figure out how to do something. That's called chisanis machshava. That itself is the external of the thinking process. We're talking about the depth of the thinking process. What's really excites you. Ein lei teretz. There's no answer. The thought is separate. You don't have to think about it the whole time. When it's time to do it, do it. You don't have to the whole night think, how am I going to do it? I'm going to do better, etc. Investing all your energy of your thought into worldly things. The Rebbe says when it comes to the thought, like I said before, the depth of the thought within the thought. It's more sensitive, the private thought, than the thought connected to speech, right? When a person wants to communicate, so you work out in your head what you want to say. That's thought that's connected to speech. But then you have thoughts that are private. You have no intention to express them. When gullus, when exile, when non-holy things enter that space, it's even more vulnerable. The thought of the thought it reaches deeper within the soul. And the Rebbe says the thought connected to speech and action. Okay, Mela, you needed to perform better, so you thought about it. Maybe you thought about it too much, but it's all connected to the external. But the internal, that has nothing to do with expression. It's just personal. What excites you? I can't wait to get my paychecks. I'm going to buy something. Whatever it is, the depth of it, because the Rebbe says there you have no excuse. Even if you want to say that I need part of my thinking to enhance and my performance of speech and action. I say that's only the thought connected to speech. But the thought within the thought itself that's private. It's to yourself. It's what you know within yourself of what you're motivated and what your drive is. Has nothing to do with action. That you have no excuse to invest that in worldly things. So what is Moshiach? We said Moshiach gathers in the sparks. He gathers in its kol nitzus akdusha. This what did the Rebbe start off saying in this idea? That it's not just that your thoughts are wrong. You're investing the sparks of holiness. That means God gave us the ability to think, speak, and act, and the other koiches, the other strengths that He gives us in order to enhance our experience as a Jew, to be an expression of the godly soul. And instead, it was not an expression of the godly soul. Or you've taken the godly soul and invested it. Mashkia, you invested in other things. So what's Mashiach have to do? He has to gather those thoughts, speech, and actions back. She gathers back all the sparks of holiness, meaning the person's strength of Shal Yehudi, of a Jew. That got lost. That a person who just loses things that are given to them. You've been given strengths and you lost them. But Nefesh Bahamas, you lost them to the animal soul. So what is Mashiach going to do? Like he gathers in the sparks, brings them back to Eretz Yisrael. Within the person, Eretz Yisrael means bringing it back to the godly soul. The true ownership of a Jewish person's speech, action, and thought. Again, it's not just that you're not going to be working or doing. It's the drive behind it, the focus behind it, the motivation behind it. Just like the tribe of Dan, When people lost things, the tribe of Dan brought it back to them. He says, "Vaydei kibitz galis beruchnius." And when Mashiach is going to gather, imagine that. Wow, Mashiach is going to come, and he's going to come speedily, and he's going to come today, and gather all the thoughts, all our emotional and physical investments that we invested in worldly things, pull it out of that, drain it out of all the worldly things, and bring it into kedusha. That's the beginning of Mashiach. By day kibitz galis beruchnius. Mashiach is going to gather all these things in a spiritual way. Yifagam kibitz galis begashmis. That in itself is an automatically mean that physically the Jewish people are no longer going to be in the places that they are. Although you could say that it happened because of our sins, we were exiled out. But now, when Mashiach is going to grab all our thoughts, all our koiches, all our energies, automatically it's going to bring the Jewish people back there to Israel. He's going to gather all the Jewish people from all their places of their different exiles. He's going to bring us to the Holy Land, the land of Eretz Yisrael. Eretz, the land, this is a land that God is Teirish, means he has an interest in it constantly. God's eyes watch the Holy Land of Eretz Yisrael, from the beginning of the year, to the end of the year. This is the place of a Jewish person. Excuse me, the Rebbe says, based on this will be understood. What is the idea of Mashiach? That is the revelation, like we said, that finalizes the holiday of Pesach. All right. We said there's rockets coming at Jerusalem, but I'm assuming I'm in a safe spot. Okay. Is Imailis Achron Pesach. The Achron Pesach completes and elevates all the days of Pesach. It says in the writings of the Arizal, with regard to the 7 days between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, that each day represents one of the 7th days of the week. Meaning on Rosh Hashanah, when we're fixing between Rosh Hashanah and Kippur, our past year, the 7 days of between Rosh Hashanah and Kippur is a time for us to elevate the 7 days of the week throughout the past year, how we did on Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. Sunday of the first day, the Sunday, of the 7 days of Tshuva elevates all the Sundays of the week of the year. All the Mondays elevate the Mondays, and so to the other days of the week. We have the 7 days of Pesach. It's a shame to learn this now, but now we have an opportunity, Shvisha Pesach is Shabbos, to elevate all the Shabbos of the year. That the same thing, the 7 days of Pesach elevate and bring Geula, energy, to all the days of the week. Shem Poilim Beseder, the L'mayla, like the idea of Pesach, it empowers from above down. Akol Shivas Me'ashur Shemeshach Hashanah Abba. That it gives us power, that throughout the next year, from now forward, that every Sunday of Pesach should be a good Sunday, and every Monday should be after Pesach should be a good Monday. That gives us a geula, a redemption feeling throughout the weeks of the year. So 1965, like this year, the first day of Pesach fell out on Shabbos. Sorry, not this year. This year we fell out on Sunday. It affects that all the Shabbosim of the following year. And the second day gives strength to all the Sundays, depending on when Pesach falls out. And the seventh day gives strength to all the 7th days, whatever that day of the week is. This week it's Shabbos. That's all if everything was done properly. If the 7 days of Pesach we've done properly, so then we can elevate, we have elevated all the days of the week, or the days going forward of the week, from how we performed on Pesach. Now the Rebbe says, what about Kasher Nechsar avoided the Shivas Yimei Pesach? Now we're all sitting the final days of Pesach, right? We're leaving the 6th day, going to the 7th day. And we can look back and say, Did we spend this Pesach properly? Did we really invest in every day in Pesach that it should be an empowering day to give strength for all the rest of the days of the year on that day, the Sunday of this Pesach, the Monday of this Pesach? So what happens if it's lacking? We didn't perform on the level we could have on Pesach. And God gave us on Pesach days, energy for those days. And instead we invested that energy in other things. So this is the idea that we have to take away from this class. That now we're going to the final day of Pesach, the Achron of Pesach, which, like we said, is a gathering and a completion and an elevation. Shabai Meir Gila Haris Moshiach, and therefore, when the previous Rebbe says that on the Achron of Pesach, we have revelation of Mashiach, means that Mashiach gathers in all the wasted and badly applied energies that we had in the past. Mashiach is going to gather in all those energies, like we said, and bring it back. So it comes Achron Pesach, we can take all the energies that we possibly didn't invest properly on Pesach, and Mashiach, which gathers in to gather in all that strength. Mashiach is all about gathering in the exiles, the sakin al hashlim, to fix and to complete. All that we should have done in Pesach, we have an ability to elevate on Achron Pesach. And therefore, we should be able to have that what we could have done in the 7 days to affect positive in the days going forward, we should be able to actually affect it going on Achron Pesach in case we haven't done it in the highest level. We call Inyan Shabbatayra. Oh, just finished the Sikha here. Ukachol Inyan Shabbatayra is all things in Torah. Shlache Shiniskala, Harizen Nasa Nachlase Shakol Echad Misrael. Once the previous Rebbe revealed this becomes an inheritance. Once the previous Rebbe revealed the Pirsum and he publicized, on the final day of Pesach, Meir Gili Aris Mashiach, it's the revelation of Mashiach, which is the power to gather in lost energies. Our avoida has to be, what do we have to do? Not just sit there. Be involved in helping gathering in all those lost energies. It becomes your obligation, in your merit. And every man or female of the Jewish people. Spend the final day of Pesach, mentally, spiritually, physically, gathering in all your lost strengths. And now that it's been revealed to us, by ignoring this revelation of the power of the final day of Pesach, we're wasting the revelation. Again, wasting energy. It's been revealed to us the power of the final day of Pesach. Utilize it. Therefore, the previous Rebbe added that the revelations should come through kindness and compassion. What does it mean, kindness? Kindness is that you don't discriminate. When a person discriminates, that's not kindness. Kindness is without any discrimination. If you say this person deserves, this person doesn't deserve, that's not kindness, that's compassion. Or even worse, that's gvura. Gvura separates. Chesed is everyone. That's why we say gemilas chasadim. A loan could be to even a rich person, right? A person says, I'm not going to loan a rich person, I'm going to loan a poor person. That's not called gemilas chasadim. The Rebbe didn't say only that a person should act in kindness just in giving. He also gave us compassion. What's the benefit of compassion, of kindness? If you're only giving as a giving way without the idea of compassion, so you don't recognize the person who's receiving. It's all about you. I want to give. When you have compassion, you're feeling the pain of the next person. The next difference between compassion and giving is compassion reaches deeper within the person than kindness. When a person is compassionate, that means you're involved, you feel, as opposed to just giving. It takes the person's inner and all the way to the essence. And in order to empower us and to give us his compassion, his kindness, so we should be able to affect the Achron Pesach, gather in all the lost sparks of the Pesach, gather in all the lost sparks of our life. The Rebbe gives us a bracha l'chaim al yayin and wine. That And when you want to say praise, you want to give strength, you do it on wine. So we want to say l'chaim to everyone. I wish everyone a good Achron Shal Pesach. Take the message of the Rebbe. Go and gather in all your strength, your lost, if there's any lost strengths, any lost thoughts, actions, or speech. Take advantage of it. You've been empowered to do it. And we should be zeicha to the actual kibbutz galius with the coming of Moshiach. B'mheira b'yameinu. Laila tov, everyone, and good Yom Tif.
Thank you, Rabbi. Shabbat shalom, everybody.
Thank you.